I'm Kate Piramali, Senior Occupational Therapist at Autism Advisory and Support Service.
And hi, I'm Stephanie Watts. I'm a psychologist, also at Autism Advisory and Support Service. And Kate and I are here to have a chat. Today. Autism Acceptance Month is coming up in April, and Autism Acceptance Day is the 2nd of April. And we're here to spread some knowledge, to spread some understanding, and talk about the lived experience of autism, both as clinicians, working with multiple clients, with a diagnosis, as well as for myself, my own lived experience of being autistic and being neurodivergent. So we hope you enjoy, and we hope you learn and understand, and just, listening.
Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Everyone has been given the same book, the book of life, if you will, whatever you'd like to call it. Everyone's been given the same book. The difference is I've forgotten to start reading it. I've forgotten to read it. Maybe I've got distracted. Maybe something else has come up. Maybe it just isn't important to me. And I'm on chapter 2 while everyone else is on chapter 20. That's not to say that I'm not going to get to chapter 20. But at the moment, everyone else is talking about this book that I haven't read. They're seeing this information, they're talking about characters, they're talking about these events, they're talking about all these things that I don't know anything about. And I can put bits and pieces in because I've read the first 2 chapters, and maybe I've read the back cover and I kind of know bits and pieces that are going on, but I don't have the full story. So it's kind of just like feeling out of place when everyone else knows this information.
Like you're always catching up.
Always catching up, always just wanting to know more and wanting to know the story, but maybe it's not important some days. Maybe the book is quite boring. Maybe it's something that isn't in my interest, and I just, as much as I would love to be able to know and converse and discuss with people what they know or where they're up to, people are always one step ahead. They were age appropriate as I got to that age.
Okay.
Disney is obviously age appropriate as a kid. Harry Potter, however, the books came out when I was in kindergarten. In Australia. They came out the year before in the UK, but in Australia, first time I got my hands on a Harry Potter book, I was in kindergarten. I could already read. I could already read that Harry Potter book, and I would sit and read it to my mum every day. That is not age appropriate.
No,
so whilst and I think for many parents actually, that interest might have not been age appropriate at 6, at 5, 6 years of age words.
I wonder what it is. I mean, I could have a whole tangent around Harry Potter. You and I love Harry Potter. But what it is about those things that draws us in. And how
it's really funny because I think a lot of people I speak to, and it, like you said, it's the world, it's the escape, the set into a different reality. That wasn't me. I wasn't that imaginative kid who put myself in other worlds. I was very in touch with reality, probably too much. I was so hypervigilant on reality. But thinking about it, I watched the Harry Potter reunion, the 20-year reunion in January, and I was bawling my eyes out because they were talking about how Harry Potter has reached just so many people and made people feel connected and loved, and it is a place that people can go and feel as though they're part of something, and that just hit home. Harry Potter was safe. I connected with characters, Hermione and Luna being the main ones, for me anyway, but it was just a sense of connection and belonging and safety, and
I get you. Someone also hugely loves Harry Potter, and for me, a bit older, I think I was about 15. And when I read those books, again, it was like, where have you been all my life? This makes sense to me. And also someone who found school really hard and not a place where I found I fit in easily. And so this was an escape, definitely, for me, where I could just be and not worry. And I know we're going to talk about lots of things today, but I guess this idea of our brains being so active and being able to switch that off, for me, being able to read was a way that I could just quiet my thoughts, my inner thoughts, and get into that world. I love you mentioned Hermione and Luna. Luna is one that I love to think about, because Luna to me just embodies that idea of accepting who we are. We're different. Yeah. What isn't different? What is normal? We're gonna have a whole chat about that.
She's quirky.
She's quirky.
And I love it. She's on my backpack.
She is.
So.
And she doesn't apologise for being quirky. I am who I am.
And I think she was, it sounds weird, because I think most people would sit there and be like, she's not the person you want to be, right? In society, people look at her and think she's weird, think she's quirky, think she's odd, think she's weird. But she found her friends in that group. She found people who loved her and loved her for who she was.
Yes.
And she was someone that I was like, I wish that I could be unapologetically me.
Yes.
But that's not the case.
Yeah.
That has never been the case since preschool, since school, like early on. I don't know that I'm doing it a lot of the time now.
Yeah.
It's become so automatic, so ingrained that this is the way that I've been told to act, and this is how I should do it. And I sit here even now and think, this isn't me. I'm sitting here talking in a very professional, using my gestures. I'm sitting here. I'm
eye
like,
contact.
I'm like, I make my eye contact, and I'm like, oh, put my little fidget in my lap. I'm like, oh, my leg should go up. No, it should go down. No, like, I'm very aware of everything that I'm doing, and that is the part now as an adult that I'm so hyper aware of.
Yeah.
That when I was younger, masking came from bullying. Masking came from other people being bullied. Masking came from those little side comments that people would make. Things like, just trying to think, I remember in preschool, one of my teachers was like, oh, stop moving your hands that way. And from then on, I kind of just sat on my hands. I didn't want to flap them. I didn't want to fidget. As I got older, I would kind of just like sit here with my hands, maybe moving them slightly, maybe doing circle motions, little subtle kind of stings, I guess, rather than
discreet.
sitting here like this.
It's almost like you're being primed of what's expected and what's not expected.
Yeah, and it wasn't until again I got older that I was like, oh, like I needed to do those things.
Absolutely.
Because I then wasn't feeling comfortable after that, and I think that's one example. Eye contact is another one. The classic of, hey, look at me when you're speaking. And people don't mean anything by it, but it impacts.
Yeah. And eye contact's an interesting one, because even in a lot of interventions, it is a focus, right? Where we're trying to teach kids that to be socially appropriate, we need to be showing that we're listening. I've been very aware. I'm actually looking straight at you the whole time, and I am so sorry, because I'm realising that could be extremely awkward, but a little hard to have this chat and not look at you.
I am aware of it also, mainly because I feel like you're staring into my soul.
I am so sorry. I will try and look around a little bit.
You're fine. I think
it's a good thing to talk about, because we don't talk about that. This actually often can cause even pain for some some people it's not comfortable. It can be distressing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I have learnt, in a professional sense,
Yeah.
what is expected, and
Yeah.
I have been taught how to do those things. It is not natural.
No.
It is not something that I would ever do automatically. I have to put in so much effort to make eye contact, or to use my hands, or change my facial expression, my tone of voice.
Yeah. So all these things you're going to kind of tell yourself in the back of your head as you're doing something, and that's exhausting, right? Like all this extra stuff you have to think
Problem
about.
is, it's not normally the back of your head.
Yeah.
It's normally forefront, and it becomes all-encompassing.
Yeah.
And people will often be like, "You seem distracted." Yeah, because all I can hear is my thoughts telling me to look at you or not to look at you, or is that too much eye contact? Have you looked at her yet? What are you doing with your hands? No.
Yeah.
And it just becomes so confuddled and so confusing and puzzling in your mind that you're just like, I don't know, social communication.
I work with you, I see you, and most people, I imagine, and I know, wouldn't realise how much is going on behind the scenes for you to present in, what do we call it, like a typical manner, right? To be able to function, you hold your job beautifully, you do a beautiful job as a psychologist. But what does it cost you?
I have learnt how to do my job,
Yeah.
and I love my job. I love working with the clients that I work with. I love doing that training and resources and all of that. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy it, but it has taken a toll. I feel like the simplest way to put it is it's exhausting.
Yeah.
What that means though, it means so different depending on the time of the day.
Yeah.
It might mean getting up in the morning and not wanting to go to work, just being like, I just want to stay home. And I know everyone can relate to that, but when you are crying hysterically because you can't get out of bed, not because you don't like work, not because you don't want to go see your clients, because you do not have the energy to get up and put that face on.
Yeah.
So then you get up, and sooner or later then the time crunch comes in, because anxiety kicks in at that point, and it's like, okay, you got to get there. You drive and you listen to the same music every day to make sure that you have a constant, and you sing along if you feel like it, but maybe do some dance moves in the car. People next to you stare at you.
I do always wonder about that when I sing in the car with people next to me thinking on the road when we go.
Sup? No. But then I get to work, and again, it's more effort to get out of the car.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I've got to do this. Like, this is
Willing
something that
yourself, like, out of the car.
Yeah. And I am someone who responsibility and commitment has been driven into me since I was young. So if I was to, and I know you know this, I really struggle to call in sick.
Yeah.
I can't make that decision, and I can't put other people, like I can't inconvenience other people, and it makes it very exhausting for me. And then I get to work, and I kind of go into maybe a bit of autopilot mode.
Yeah.
I know what my job is, and I've got my schedule, and I know what I'm doing, and I just gotta go do. And those days are fine. They're exhausting, but they're fine.
You've got a structure to them,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
The days where where there are sudden changes to work schedules, or when I'm trying to do my work but other people need things from me, and that it's all part of the job and it's all part of work, and there's nothing we can do about it. But the mental exhaustion of having to physically change what I am doing to leave what I had expected and transition to a whole other thing just adds just monumental amounts of stress and anxiety in the day, which by the end of the day, normally I get home and lay on a lounge and scroll through TikTok or
just to kind
social media,
I guess, unwind, or just to release from that.
To do kind of nothing, and I lay there for hours and I don't talk and I don't interact, and I might have my weighted blanket or a soft toy, or something sensory and tactile, and something that I can just feel kind of cozy with. I'll eat dinner when it's provided to me.
To need someone else to help assist with some of that self-care stuff, because there's just nothing left at the end of that day to do that self-care.
There's nothing left to talk, there's nothing left to move, there's nothing left to take care of myself. My mum, she probably cops the brunt of it a little bit. She gets the irritated, the frustrated Steph at the end of the day that kind of snaps and then cries because she's so apologetically, like, I feel so guilty about snapping, because it feels out of my control at that point.
Would you say that's moving into, I mean, we haven't mentioned the words, I guess, meltdown and shutdown as yet. Would you say that's moving towards kind of that meltdown territory?
It may not be a meltdown. It may, if I get irritated and mum reacts to that, or my partner reacts to that, or someone reacts, then maybe it would be more of a meltdown, more of that externalized, just hysterical crying and frustration, and whether there's self-injury or self-harm involved in that, or what that looks like. But most of the time people don't react. Most of the time they know that I am not intending that. I hate the idea of being rude. Like, hate it. It is like my no, can't stand. No, I cannot stand the idea of someone even thinking that I was trying to be rude or trying to act in a way that was not kind, or
is that, I think, about disappointing people, or that in trouble kind of thing?
I think it's a lot of things. I think being in trouble is definitely a factor. I hate the idea of doing something wrong. I have always been a perfectionist. I have always liked things very rigidly. I like things the way that I like things, and that's how it is. But what were we saying? I just lost my complete train of thought.
About things being, about disappointing people, or about the rudeness. So if you felt perceived being rude, you find that really, really hard.
So being in trouble is definitely one factor. Hurting another person, and knowing that I have impacted them in a negative manner, and the fact that then if they're angry, I feel their anger and I'm going to be angry. I feel everything. I think that's kind of the easiest way to kind of put it, and I feel everything so strongly that I don't know how to react to it. If I feel anger, I cry. If I feel anxious, I cry. If I feel really excited, I cry. If someone is disappointed, I cry. It's just a lot of crying. That's my emotional kind of way of dealing.
Yeah, it's how your body expresses what it's feeling.
But empathy is a funny thing, I guess. Like you said, the myth, I guess, or the way we've been told is that autistic people lack theory of mind, right? They lack understanding another person's point of view. For me, I don't think that's the case, and I'm sure some people may say that that is the case for them. And I can definitely see areas of my life where that may have been the case, but empathy-wise and emotion-wise, it's not about understanding what they're going through. It's about feeling what they're feeling and being with them. If you're angry, I'm going to feel that. I'm going to know full well that you're angry. I may not understand why you're angry. I may not understand what you need. I may not understand how to help you through that. But I will know that you're angry, and I will do anything that I can to try and help you, to try and be there, to listen, to learn, to understand. The problem with that is if someone else is in such a heightened state, I'm going to be in a heightened state because our emotions are now matching. So it's always really funny because I think the classic kind of thing we see is people who are upset and then they're like, oh, my autistic child won't comfort me, or my autistic child, or my autistic partner, or my whoever is autistic in their life, doesn't know how to respond. And that may be the case. For me, I sit there and say and think and go, I don't know how to respond until you tell me. But as soon as you tell me, I know. And I may not be comfortable, but I will try.
And it's also, isn't it, about what someone else needs as a response. So we may both feel an emotion of sadness. I may need a hug when I feel sad. You do not want a hug. To the point where I know this so much that I sit on my hands when I see you in distress, because my go-to is just to give you a hug, and I know that's not helpful.
No.
But it is then just because you may not give me a hug, or it doesn't mean you're not with me and feeling my emotion. You are with me, sitting with me, listening, and so I think it's one thing, isn't it, for us to experience an emotion and understand, I guess, or to be in touch with what another person's emotion is. It's another thing in how we respond to that. We're not all going to feel the same thing is helpful, and I guess it's one thing to know what we need, and then to know what another person needs. It's also complicated.
This is a big topic because everyone's perspective and everyone's preferences are kind of different. Predominantly within the autistic community, people prefer identity first language, and by that we mean autistic person. Stephanie is autistic. I am autistic. I am an autistic person. Autism comes first. And the reason that is because I can't separate from it.
No.
Nor should you need a reminder that I'm a person.
Let's hope not.
So it doesn't make sense for a lot of people that person has to come first.
Yeah.
However, there are still people who prefer person-first language.
That's what I was asking. How is this okay? How do you want us to identify that or describe it? If I was, I don't know, introducing you running a training, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's a tricky thing, right, with it being a spectrum, and so how we differentiate and help understand and about the person that we're with and we're talking to. Some of the other words that get thrown out and haven't yet mentioned is high functioning, low functioning. I'm so sorry. I know just mentioning them is not an easy thing. Severe autism, just a little bit autistic.
Yeah, we're all a bit autistic.
Yeah, mildly autistic.
Yeah. These are they're really challenging terms because it is a spectrum, but that spectrum even changes for a single person on a day-to-day basis, on a situation-to-situation basis. And I can sit here and I can chat with you and I can use my voice and I can express what my experience has been. I can do that, and I can think very hard about regulating my body language and what that looks like and doing all of that. And people will look at this and be like, high functioning, right?
Right.
I hold down a job. I've studied.
Yeah.
I've done all these things. I've played sport. I've done things that society would deem
You're in a
quite
relationship,
successful.
have a partner.
Yeah. As generally successful.
As functioning, right? As
Yeah.
functioning in the community and in your life.
The difference being, I will leave here and I will not do anything for the rest of the day, and I will probably cry, and not because I'm upset, because I'm exhausted. I will probably watch a Harry Potter movie, let's be real.
Nothing wrong with that.
And
it's that exhaustion that comes, how much something costs you compared to perhaps how much it may use of someone else's energy.
For me, the biggest thing at school is just knowing that even though you can't see what that child is thinking or feeling, know that they are probably thinking a lot.
Yes.
I sit there and I think about noises in classrooms and lights in classrooms and kids talking and school bells. Oh, I was very glad my high school didn't have a bell, so I got rid of that. That was a bonus. But people throwing paper, just mischievous kind of things that kids do.
Unexpected kind of sensation.
Unexpected routine changes, schedule changes.
Transitions. But even the well-intended displays in a room to make a room look warm and inviting can be often so overstimulated, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're very able to speak in a situation like this. But it doesn't mean that if you're at school, you would be able to say, hey, I don't have what I need right now to learn, or I'm exhausted, help me.
I still can't do that.
No.
And I definitely couldn't do it as a child.
Yeah.
I floated through school. I was the kid that was good, so why did it matter?
The kid, the clever girl, the shy girl.
Yeah. The kid that didn't cause any trouble.
Yes.
The kid that sat there and did their work, and it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
The difference being, everything I did was driven by perfectionism. Everything I did was driven by anxiety. Everything I did was driven by rigidity and repetitiveness that has now led to multiple other mental health diagnoses, because those needs weren't met, because I couldn't explain them. I couldn't get those thoughts out of my head. I couldn't tell you what I need. I think about sitting in a classroom and just kind of feeling like maybe I wasn't real, or maybe everything else wasn't real. Like I was just
a surreal experience, not present in that.
Mental exhaustion after the day of just not even remembering, but knowing what is important to mention. What, like, if you've done a task that's based on your interest or something exciting, you're going to come home and you're going to talk about it. The difference here again is I didn't share. And I think that's something that is often overlooked. Is I didn't understand that people wanted to know, or what they wanted to know.
Open-ended, aren't they? How was school today? What did you do today?
Even now, if people were like, "How was your day?" I'm like, "It seemed okay." Like ups and downs. You know, I could have had a massive meltdown, and I still would have just been like, "It's fine." Like, and again, I think because we're taught that people don't want the real answer.
Absolute fair call.
You know, people go, "How are you?" And we go, "Good, thanks. How are you?"
It's like a rehearsed answer.
That has not been my experience, and I cannot speak for the people whose experience it is, because that's their voice, and they have a right to explain and provide and give that understanding for people. But I can sit here and know I have moments where I cannot speak. I have moments where words are just too hard. It doesn't mean I'm not thinking. It doesn't mean that I don't have needs. It doesn't mean that I don't just wish that I could tell you. It just means that at that moment, words aren't there. And schools have fluorescent lights. And fluorescent lights make noise. And I can hear electricity. So when all you hear is a high-pitched buzz all day, your ears ring by the end of the day.
And part of me is hearing how incredibly difficult this is, right? And another part of me is hearing, this is super cool that you can hear electricity. I know, you can hear conversation. It's almost like a superpower. You know, I think of my...
the problem was I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to include myself in that conversation.
Fair call. You know, I know another person, a child that can talk about actually visualizing a food and then experience eating any kind of food and really feel that. Can project colours, you know, and see everything in different colours. I mean, all these things...
That synesthesia.
Yes, and all of this stuff, I think, is some of the really cool parts about neurodiversity that we don't talk about. We talk about deficits and we talk about special interests as something that is an obsession. We use this really negative language, and you know, we're moving towards this what we call the neurodiverse affirming, and you know, and I still think we've got a long way to go in being able to embrace some of this.
I could not converse like a teenager. I do not text in short speech. I use full sentences and full grammar, and those are the rules. You know, I couldn't. I didn't talk about boys, and I didn't understand what teenage girls wanted to talk about. You had to talk interest. You had to talk what they wanted to talk about, and I couldn't do that. I didn't. One, I wasn't interested. It frustrated me that they would talk about, or just people in general. Like, I I'm using softball as an example, but it's the whole of teenage girls at that time. It was much bigger. I couldn't communicate in the same way that other people could.
Yes.
And they didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them.
Yes.
I have always spoken like an adult. I have always been rather articulate, not with my emotions, but in general conversation.
Which makes sense, being a psychologist, that would be where you're drawn to a profession where we are using our words.
Yeah. So like, that's always been a factor. As I've got older, people have obviously caught up. People have also gone to uni. They've also studied. They also hold adult conversations because we are now adults. And if anything, it's now gone the other way. Or if I sit there and I'm like, can't we just talk about Disney and be happy and fun? Like,
let's go back to those things.
I don't want to talk about what vacuum you're buying.
No.
One, having something in my hands takes away one factor that I have to think about. My hands are occupied.
That makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have to think about what my hands are doing. My hands are done. That takes one factor away. But it is very much the feel of it. It can't just be anything in my hands. If I am not moving, if I am not doing something, I cannot think.
Yes.
I struggle so often to even just make my words into a sentence because there are so many thoughts happening in my head at once that they're all convoluted, and I have to use so much thinking time to even just put things in place.
Yeah.
To me, I think just understanding and listening and being with someone when they are both happy and anxious and angry and whatever other emotion we want to go with, being with them and learning what they need at that time. You know, and we discussed this before, and sometimes we're not good at it. Sometimes we focus on our own needs. Sometimes we forget what other people need as well, and that's okay. But whoever you are, whatever your diagnosis is, if you have a diagnosis, if you do not, you deserve to have your needs met and understood and listened to by family, by friends, by professionals, by teachers, by whoever, you know. And it won't always happen, but that's the whole point of spreading awareness and spreading a message of acceptance to make sure that more people can feel like their needs are being met and understood and cared for, and all those wonderful happy feelings.